Happy New Year. I am Mario Ganjimmyi, the chair of the Capital Committee and conducting this morning's meeting. Today is January the 8th, and I hereby call the Capital Committee meeting to order at 9 o'clock. In accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is conducted via video conference and live stream on the MDTA Capital Committee page. As a reminder, all members of the Capital Committee will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. To minimize background noise, I do ask that everyone mute your devices. And if you are presenting or answering a question, that you have both your video and audio on when speaking, and when done, to turn your video off and audio back on mute. There are no members of the public. There are no elected officials and no media that have pre-registered. So we can move on to agenda item number 1, which is approval of the meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2025. Seems like it was just last year. Member Cox moves for approval.
Second, Member Cordova.
Second from Member Cordova. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
And now we can move on to Simon for MDTA 2024-04A Structures Inspection Program and Miscellaneous Engineering Services. This should be, I think this is contract number 2 of 5 that we will be looking at. So Simon, you are up, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everyone. Good morning to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my name is Simon Segai, project engineer with MDTA Office of Engineering and Construction. MD 2024-04A Structure Inspection Program and Miscellaneous Engineering Services contract will provide inspection services of MDTA facility-wide assets, as well as design services for asset repairs. MDTA Asset Condition Inspection Assist in development capital projects, repair task orders, repair on-call contracts, and asset management programs. The contract was advertised on April 22nd, 2025, and bid date was on June 17, 2025. The contract is capped at $70 million, and contract duration is 4 years. 7 technical proposals were received for this contract, and 5 firms were recommended for an award. All 5 awards have been on previous and current inspection contracts. Please note that we are requesting approval for 2 contracts in this presentation. A is 3143, $13 million for RTNK and M&M JV. Also 3144 for $14 million for ACOM Wallace Montgomery JV. The remaining 3 contracts are still under price negotiations. We are seeking recommended approval from the Capital Committee to present this contract to the full MDTA board in anticipation of approval for contract award. Thank you.
Member Cox has a question. Unmute yourself, though.
Simon, I see that both awards are $14 million for 4 years. Were the others within the same range that of the other 3 contractors that did not get the bid? Were they within the same range as far as price?
Yes, they are. All 5 contracts are going to be the same amount.
Okay.
And is this a renewal of a previous contract? Is this like an on-call?
This is new contracts for the inspection program.
But in follow-up to her question, they've all done this work for us before.
They did. Yeah, they did.
Mr. Davis wants to chime in. I can see he's all excited.
Mm-hmm.
Must be his New Year's resolution. Go ahead, Jeff. You're still on mute, though.
Good morning. No, I was scrambling to remove my hoodie and beanie because my basement is cold. Thankfully,
You could have kept it on. We'd have been okay.
I just wanted to clarify. I think Member Cordova was, not just asking if it was renewal, but if it was replacement contracts. These are
Yes.
replacement contracts. So I think this one was 4 years. We'll do another set in 4 years from now.
Thank you for the clarification. My question wasn't the correct question, but thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions, or is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, so Member Cox motions, and boy, you guys are slow this year.
Yeah, right.
We're thinking.
We're still
thinking.
recovering
Just
from
waking up, so you gotta
the
give it a
New
little
Year's
more time.
hangover. So we got a motion from Member Cox, a second from Member Sneed. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, okay, that was everybody. Now, Mr. Wolf's gonna talk to us about the demolition of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Progress. I know demolition doesn't sound like progress, but we're moving forward, so that's good.
Yes, that is correct. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. For the record, I'm Brian Wolf. I am Director of Project Development in Office of Engineering and Construction. Here to talk about demolition of the existing Key Bridge. If you refer to your slides, we'll move down to the slide numbered 1. This is just an outline of what I'll be covering this morning. We'll talk a little bit about the permitting. We'll talk about some costs. I'll get into a little bit of the operational aspects on the removal work. I'll give an update on what the current status is of the demolition that's ongoing. Talk a little bit about what's being deferred into phase 2, and I'll get into that in some of the future slides. And then, of course, if there's any questions from any of the members, we'll certainly try to answer them. So moving on to slide 2, just a cover sheet, but we'll get into the permitting elements. So if you move on to the next slide, number 3. Here, I just wanted to present some of the state, what we call the state required permits. These are permits that we obtained from Maryland Department of the Environment, as well as the Board of Public Works. Typical erosion and sediment control permits, general stormwater, tidal wetland licenses from Board of Public Works. The dates that are supplied here are when we got the original permits issued. There have been modifications to some of these permits, especially to the tidal wetland licenses. Those modifications are just to conform the license to changes or adjustments made to like means and methods, or to how the demolition work would be progressed. It was just to align the permitting for that. So the dates you'll see on the next slide as well, those are all the original dates of the original permit issuance, but there have been some modifications over time as the plans have been revised and adjusted. Also want to point out, you'll notice there's a phase 1 and phase 2, and you'll see that in the other slide as well. The phase 1 and phase 2 represents it's related to demolition. So phase 1 is all of the land-based demolition. Phase 2 represents demolition that is over the Patapsco River or demolition within the Patapsco River. So that's why you'll see that there's these phase 1 and phase 2 references. Moving on to slide 4. Here we're showing what the federal permitting that was needed for demolition. You can see we obtained permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. We also obtained a permit from the U.S. Coast Guard. And I want to point out an error here, that tidal wetland license phase 2, that's incorrect. That was not issued by the Coast Guard. That is, unfortunately, it got copied over from the Board of Public Works licensing. So I apologize for that error. The bridge permit is the critical permit that the U.S. Coast Guard issued for us in order to do the demolition work for the Key Bridge rebuild. Also like to point out what we're calling ancillary permits, and some of these aren't actually permits, but they are documents that we needed to issue in order to conduct the work safely. For instance, the FAA form you see there, that is to get concurrence from FAA. We're in the proximity of BWI, and we were going to have crane booms extending up into the air. So we coordinated that with the FAA to make sure there were no concerns with the booms being in the way of any kind of flight paths or anything like that. We had some issuance of aids to navigation from the Coast Guard. These are additional buoys that were placed out in the project site to help delineate project locations and things like that. And then we also issued local notice to mariners, and that was to inform recreational boaters and commercial pilots, things of that, folks of that they're going to be on the water, that there's going to be work occurring in this area, and it provided information relative to the work zones and speeds, speed limits and things like that within the project site. We also had an air quality permit that we issued because we had a concrete crushing operation at the project site. So we also got an air quality permit for that. So these last couple of slides were just to give you a sense of the amount of permitting that we moved through to get that demolition work started. So moving on to the next slide, we'll go ahead and get into some of the costs and some of how we negotiated those costs. So if you go to slide 6, wanted to kind of walk you through how we go through the estimating process, and this is what we used for all of the demolition work, but it's also the process that we have been using for all the early work packages and construction work that has been progressed since we started the contract with Kiewit. So starting on the left-hand side, you'll see we start with the design development. That's development of any engineering and engineering drawings that are needed for a particular package. In this case, the demolition plans and any kind of crane lift plans that are needed. That's all developed, and we get to what we call it issued for estimate plans. These are the plans that MDTA's independent cost estimator team and Kiewit's team will use to estimate the work for their particular package. So for example, for the land-based demo, their plans were developed and then issued, and then both teams sat down together and we worked through what the means and methods were going to be, as well as the quantities. And we do that ahead of the actual estimating process so that we are not coming in with significantly different approaches to the point where the estimates are so far apart that we are having to refine them over and over and over again. So we take time up front as a team to sit down and work through how are we going to actually do this work. And that's a collaboration between MDTA, our ICE, and Kiewit's team to determine what's the best approach for doing this work, refine that now, and also agree on what the quantities are for the particular work. In this case, it would be, cubic yards of concrete removal, pounds of steel removal. The quantities are the quantities. And so rather than be arguing on certain aspects, we agree on these things first. Then we move into the estimating process for the two teams so that we're looking at more critical elements such as equipment costs and maybe like crew sizes and production rates, things like that, versus looking at unit pricing or looking at quantities and units of measurement. So both teams then go, once we've agreed on the approach and the quantities, we then go and we go through this estimating process. And then when the two teams are done, they submit their documents to MDTA, and we then create a comparison sheet. And then we step into this, the hurricane image here in the middle of the graphic. And what that's just trying to represent is that this is a cycle that we go through where we talk about schedules, durations of work elements, and we talk about what risks we think are going to be in this particular element of work. We look at the costs and the assumptions, equipment rates, durations, things like that. And then we make adjustments. And we're doing that to see if we can get alignment between our ICE estimate and Kiewit's estimate for the work. And the hurricane is just to represent that we can do this multiple times. It's not a one-time thing. It goes round and round until we come to a point where the teams agree that there is no further refinement we can really make. And at that point, we go to the next step, which is do we agree on the price, or do we not agree, or we can't reach an agreement? If we don't reach an agreement, we have alternatives there. We could package this up and advertise it as an independent contract, or there may be an opportunity to defer work to the phase two that goes into the larger phase two estimating and binding price proposal. And I can get into that a little bit a little later on. We did do that for an element of this work. So if you look up at the top, where if we do come to an agreement, we then go to the next step of agreeing on what is the risk register for the project. Are there risks with any of the particular elements of the work? And then we make sure we cover those risks with potential costs or contingency costs that we think it's going to arise. We also take that time to, as you see there, the closeout, the subcontractor closeouts. We then get actual quotes from suppliers, vendors that are providing materials. If it's work that's being subcontracted out, we get it from their subcontractor, and we put actual prices into it. And then we agree to that binding price. And at that point, we work our way through to issue that work package then for construction. So that's just the rough process we go through, but we go through this process for every work package that we have put out with Kiewit. And I just wanted to provide that background as we did this for the demolition work that I'm going to walk through here in a minute or two.
Brian, before you do that, can you tell
Sure.
us how well that worked for the demolition package?
It worked well. What ended up happening, we were able to agree to a reasonable price for the land demolition. What it did for us is it showed us that the pricing for the marine demolition, we were not going to get there with an agreement. We realized that our estimate and their estimate were likely too far apart. And so we did do that bottom approach of we deferred that work to phase two rather than trying to get it issued as an independent package. There are some inefficiencies with issuing these independent packages
Yep.
that we think we can eliminate by going to the much bigger phase two estimating and
Got it.
process. So
Got it.
it does
But
work.
the good news is you've got that work done and it's set on the shelf for when you go to the next phase and you can do the comparison. And okay, so nothing's lost.
No.
And some probably some very valuable lessons learned in the process. And okay, great. I appreciate that.
Yes. So moving on to slide 7, talk a little bit about this land-based demolition. This is the bridge elements that are on both the north and the south side of the original Key Bridge. This will involve complete removal of the superstructure and the substructure down to 2 feet below the ground line. And that's the 2 feet below is pretty standard for demolition of transportation structures and something MDE typically requires. Kiewit did treat this as a turnkey type package, so they subcontracted this out completely and competitively bid it. They did get 4 proposals, which we evaluated. They provided what they called quote sheets to us, and we were able to see all 4 of the pricings that we could review. MDTA and then our GSE and ICE could review. Kiewit did recommend Sessler Wrecking. as a best value selection, but they also turned out to be the lowest bid for this land-based demolition. So we ultimately went with Sessler, who's currently out there now completing that work. Moving
But
on to
just a quick question, Brian.
Mhm.
I assume we still pay Kiewit though, correct? So there is because they're still overseeing it.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
the contract is, Kiewit has a subcontract with Sessler, but our contract is with Kiewit.
Got it.
So moving on to slide 8.
Hey, follow-up question, wait, Mr. Chairman. So in other words, as far as they were the low bid with Kiewit, but that's within the total package that Kiewit has with us, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
There's always some cost associated with Kiewit with their involvement. They don't when they operate, they do not simply let their subcontractor out there. There's management and oversight costs that Kiewit incurs for having a superintendent or a project engineer on site monitoring progress and coordinating effort and things like that. So there are costs that get lumped in that are Kiewit's direct costs in addition to the cost from Sessler. So on slide 8, this is the breakdown on the marine demolition. And Kiewit had indicated they were going to self-perform this work. And as I mentioned, there was some work for this marine demolition that was deferred into the phase 2 overall estimating and negotiating. But we did attempt, and we did a separation. Originally, we were looking at demolition of everything in the water, all the way down to the mud line in the river. But that in-water work, or that subaqueous work, still a little unknown how that's exactly going to be done, but the initial rough order of magnitude estimates that were coming in were high. And so we took the approach of sort of severing the work into 2 pieces. One is all of the work below water, and then there's demolition above water. And so we set an elevation above the water surface and said, well, let's look at demolition from that elevation up and remove everything up essentially in the air. And so those 3 options you see there are the 3 that we evaluated. We looked at complete removal above the water line. And so we had set an elevation, I think it was like elevation plus 14. So we're roughly 14 feet above the water surface. And we said, okay, can we remove all of that? And then we looked at just removing the superstructure only. And then eventually we got to this option 3 of just removing the deck slabs. And this was that sort of, that was that hurricane that was in that previous slide. As we were going through the estimating process, we were seeing that the pricing was not aligning. And so we were looking at what other opportunities could we do some of this work, but also get it done at a reasonable price. And so ultimately, and as everybody knows, just from the when the governor did his site visit last year, we selected option 3 because the cost was reasonable to do that, the deck only removal, and also because with the shift, the alignment being slid to the east, the demolition of the marine spans became less critical path. It was not on the critical path to get out of the way of the new construction. So we felt it was best to defer the steel girder and the pier demolition into the phase 2 negotiations to take advantage of some efficiencies in staffing and equipment usage and things like that. So we deferred that and only did the option 3 as part of the demolition that's ongoing right now.
Brian, before you move on, can you walk us through the process as it pertains to the estimating piece? So Kiewit indicated that they plan to self-perform the marine demolition when? Was that part of the initial plan when we contracted with them?
Yes, we initially,
Okay.
when we looked at the demolition, we were looking at demolishing all of the remaining bridge that was there. And they had indicated they were going to do the marine work, so everything in the water. And then they were looking to do the land demo was always going to be subcontracted out.
So they've identified a self-performed plan even before the estimate happened and the design happened and everything else.
Correct.
And we agreed to that.
We did, in the sense of they were developing the plan at the time. And we said, okay, let's move forward. Let's see what the plan is. Let's see if this is workable. And so as they were developing their concepts and everything, we were having meetings with them as part of our task force meetings, where they were walking through their means and methods, and we had our ICE there, and just for transparency, our estimator has substantial experience on the construction side, not just estimators, but they're construction engineers experienced in this type of work. We were having discussions on the means and methods and how they were planning to do the work. And that effort was, we were seeing that there was just a lot of costs going into doing this work, with Kiewit wanting to do the work themselves. It's a marine work, and so the issue there is that you have a lot of marine equipment, barges, barge mounted cranes. It's difficult to get subcontractors to do that work, because the equipment is complex and it's big.
Right.
And so they had the availability of the equipment, and so that's why we went that route. But
Okay.
as we got into the planning, it was becoming clear, we were, the cost was being a little bit prohibitive to break it out as a package.
Yeah. And so that means that for the packages that Kiewit has indicated they plan to self-perform that are part of the agreed upon or somewhat agreed upon self-perform plan, those packages specifically are not bid out. Or are they still bid out competitively, and do we still get the chance to get the competition advantage out of those packages before we decide?
Yeah, there is an opportunity to do that. It's not a once and done where if they say they're self-performing, there's no discussion. We do have the opportunity to request that they put it out to bid, to see what they can get. And that's why we got the land-based demo with the estimates. The marine demo was a little different. We were going to have so much of their equipment on site because of other work going on. The coordination of having multiple contractors on the water with barges, it was a coordination issue with having a lot of barge equipment and barge mounted cranes in two operations, two different contractors. That gets to be very complex, and it would lead to more inefficiencies and higher costs. So going with their approach of self-performing, because they've already got a lot of this equipment on site, made sense for this particular element. But as I said, the pricing wasn't working out of doing it as a package.
Okay.
It doesn't work out now, but it might work out later once there's other work to be done to make it more efficient.
Exactly. They have opportunities to use the equipment in multiple operations, and it reduces sort of the overall cost because
It's never sitting, it's always moving, therefore, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, you save on mobilization of some things, and like you start making efficiencies that way. I get it. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. I think the bottom line is that we are not just limited to working with Kiewit, even though that is part of the plan, and that's a good thing. So that's kind of like the progressive design build method is letting us do that, which is important.
Yeah, that's good. Good questions, Member Cordova. Appreciate that.
So moving on to slide 9, here we'll go ahead and get into some of the operational aspects. We'll talk about the superstructure removal first, and then I'll get into a little bit of the substructure. So moving on to slide 10. Here, these are just some of the engineering drawings that were generated for the removal of the superstructure elements. I think everyone's familiar with the operation where they were crushing the median barrier with the claws, and if you look in the upper right there, that's the engineering drawing that was developed that provided them some of the details how that operation would be carried out. Once that barrier was done, they went through that saw cutting operation and slab lifting. And in the bottom of that right view there, you can see that that's their engineered plan of the sections, those 6-foot sections of slab. And then you can see they were indicating how the backhoes would be lifting those pieces up and then walking them back down the superstructure like we saw out there. Again, when the governor was visiting, we saw the backhoe carrying that section down. Once they got the deck and barriers off, they moved to the operation that you see there in the bottom detail. And that was the steel girder removal. And there, again, it was all engineered. They looked at locations where the steel would be cut. And then they had a lift plans that were prepared for the cranes to lift those sections and bring them down to the ground so that the steel could be processed and removed from the site. But just wanted to give you a sense of some of the engineering drawings that went in and some of the engineering development that went into this superstructure demo. And then if you go to the slide 11, I have some photos here of those operations. So again, on the left-hand side there's that slab operation there. I think everybody's kind of seen a lot of that from the videos and such. On the right there, you can see the cranes and you can see how tall that crane is. Hopefully that sort of convey. That's why we had to go through that FAA form with the booms, because we had them sticking up in the air so high. But this operation was removing those steel sections, and so you can see they have a spreader beam. They're getting ready to lift that span or a couple of girders off of that span there, and you can see they've already removed 2 of the spans. And so that's the operation that has been working back to remove the steel. So just wanted to get some photos to show you the sense of the operation on the superstructure demolition. So if you move on to the next slide, slide 12, talk a little bit about the engineering behind the substructure, and this is removal of the piers and the abutments on the existing bridge. These were again engineered removals. So on the right side, you can see where the pier is sort of sectioned into, and you can see these numbered sections 1 through 6. And so they had to engineer how to break that pier down piece by piece to keep it stable until they got it down to the ground. And then they used that engineered plan, and they used some specialized equipment, which you can see in the engineering drawing there on the right, or on the left, excuse me. They used what they called a high reach excavator, and it had a hydraulic hammer on it. And they essentially rubblized the pier and worked their way down on those numbered sections. And so they started with those overhangs on the pier and removed those first, and then they moved into that beam in the middle between the 2 columns and removed a portion of it. And you can see number 3 there, sort of underneath 2. They left that in place initially to keep things stable, and then they worked their way down, removing it, then removing section 4 and so forth, down till they got the bottom of the down to the ground line. But they were using specialized equipment to do that removal to get those piers to the ground line. And then if you move to slide 13, you see some photos here. On the left, there's that high reach excavator, and it's removing the columns down, and they worked that way through the whole process, and went back pier by pier as they worked their way back towards the abutment, removing those piers. And then you can see on the right there in that photo, when this was taken, 2 of the piers were already down to the ground line. And then they were starting to work on that next pier, that third pier. You can see the excavators right behind it. They were getting ready to start that pier. So that was just to give you a sense of the operations on how this demolition is occurring on both north and the south side of the bridge. Moving on to the next slide. This is just will be an update on the status of where we are with this work on the land. So on slide 15, this was provided. We got this information back in December, right before the Christmas holiday. So for the piers and the abutments, there are 23 piers and 2 abutments that needed to be removed. At the time that we got this data, they were 28% complete. And I will, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then on the superstructure demolition, just some quantities here. We had over 337,000 square feet of deck and over 9 million pounds of structural steel that had to be removed. The deck is 100% removed and rubbleized. And at the time in December, we were at 92% complete on removing all the structural steel on land. And at the,
Let me ask you, not to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
Jeff, is that on both sides percent or just on one side?
Sides.
Both sides?
Correct.
Both sides. Okay, thank you.
And so the estimated completion for this work is the end of this month or early February. And so I want to jump back to that 28% because I'm sure folks are looking at going, well, if they were only 28% complete in December, how are we going to be done at the end of January or early February? Over the course of December, they actually ramped up their operation to about 7 days a week. So their production went way up. And so they are tracking right now to be done by the end of January, very early February with this land-based demolition. So they've increased their productivity to get that completion date. So moving on to slide 16, I just wanted to touch on the phase 2 work that I had mentioned previously that we were deferring into that phase 2 negotiating. And so on slide 17, want to talk a little bit about the marine demolition. And we've sort of already hit on this, but I'll just kind of go over it again. It is all the remaining structural steel and the piers that are in the Patapsco River. And so the photos you see there are the last spans that are part of the marine work. And so there's 3 spans on the south side, and then there are 3 spans on the north side that we will be putting into the negotiating effort for the overall phase 2 package. And as I said, they still need to work out through the means and methods how they're going to do this. But again, it's not critical path because it's not in the way of the new construction. So we can do this work essentially anywhere along the way that it's most efficient and cost effective to do it versus it needed to be the first order of work. So again, that's why we felt that deferring it made a lot of sense versus trying to put it out as a separate package. So this work, these spans, as I said, you'll see that'll be negotiated as part of the overall phase 2 negotiation. And moving on to slide 18, that is the presentation. So I guess if there's any other questions, on the information.
He's itching to grill you some more.
Yeah, I'm
Go
ready.
ahead.
Before the chairman gets in there and really starts gearing things up. So it's my understanding you're 200 and some feet to the east of where it currently is. So that's why you can do this phase 2 as far as demolition on both sides, correct? So in other words, you're moving it, whatever, 200 and whatever feet to the east, correct?
Yes.
So then the start of the new structure can begin and then have that. Am I right?
That is correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And any other questions? Been some good conversation. Looks like members needs got something.
I do have a question. Are any of the materials able to be recycled? I'm not sure if I missed that, or sold, or is it purely just, we're just getting rid of them?
Good question.
The steel was sent to a recycler. The concrete was being rubblized, and the plan right now is to try to use that for temporary access work that needs to be done, because as Member Cox was alluding, the proposed alignment is shifted 260 feet to the east. We need to provide access roads down along that alignment for crane access and construction equipment and materials. And so we're looking to use the crushed concrete as an access haul road to provide that construction access. So we're looking to reuse the material on site.
And just to follow on that, is there any idea if some of the materials could be used as part of a memorial for the site, or is that something that you already considered?
So the steel, the materials that we have from this demolition, I don't think, we did not slate that for any kind of memorial. I do know there are materials that have been stored from the truss spans that is potentially available for a future memorial, and I know there's some of that being stored right now.
Okay.
And
Thank
that's
you.
more, that element's probably a little more historical in terms, because it's actual truss members. It's a little more, probably more interesting than a plate girder. So, but it's there for potential future use.
Appreciate it.
Great
That's all I
question.
have.
Members need. Anybody else? I don't have anything additional to add other than to say thank you. This is this sort of discussion of the project on a phase by phase approach will help us ultimately put all the pieces together in our heads so that we understand the big picture. But I think when we see the big picture all at once, it's overwhelming. When you break it into these small components, it's a little more easy to understand, and it helps us understand the process that we're going through to make sure we're getting the best product we can for the best price that we can, because at the end of the day, we may end up paying for this. So we need to make sure we're doing, we have to assume it's our money one way or the other. So I think we're doing the due diligence to make sure of that.
Thanks for the update, Brian. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Very good.
Appreciate it, yes.
Thank you.
So I'll close out with, again, Happy New Year to everybody. 2026 looks to be a pretty exciting year for myself personally, and I know some of you probably as well. And exciting year for the MDTA as we continue to make great strides on rebuilding from this tragedy. So I wish everybody a happy, prosperous, healthy new year, and we'll look for a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Member Cordova.
Motion. Member Cordova motions to adjourn. Looking for a second.
Second, members.
Members need seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Good
Aye,
meeting. Thank you.
that's everybody. Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a fantastic day.
Thank you.